Disclaimer. To the Pharisees and Karens out there.
How dare you!
All guests on this show do not reflect the opinions of the host. The purpose of this show is to have interesting conversations, stretch our minds, and grow.
Not what we want!
If you are looking for an echo chamber, viewer and listener discretion
is advised.
You talk about extreme.
What is happening and what is up? Hold out your glass, because we're about to fill it up.
Torches high.
Look at it from a different perspective.
Hey guys, what is happening and what is up? Hold out your glass, because we are about to fill it up. Welcome to the Prometheus Lens Podcast, the place where the conversations are always enlightening. I'm your host, Doc Brown, and here we like to use the allegory of the Prometheus Lens to take a second look at everything. Hey, you know the routine. If you're new to the channel, welcome to the hero's journey. Be sure and hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Down below, we'll have our banner with all of our social medias at their various platforms. Check those out. That would be much, much appreciated. Well, guys, I got just a banger lined up for you. I've had this gentleman on once before. You've seen him talk about his book, The Temple of Solomon. So we're going to dive into another one of his books. We're going to dive into the Rockefellers. So I'd like to welcome back to the show, Jacob Nordangård. Jacob, thank you for coming back, brother.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Maybe just for those that may be new to the show or maybe didn't catch that episode that we did together last time, you care to just introduce yourself and give a little background on what's your expertise and field of study?
Yes, I have a PhD in science and technology studies from Linköping University in Sweden. I'm a geographer and have a master also in culture and media production. And I have written 7 books now about how a new global management system has come into how this has been constructed and the actors involved in doing this and geopolitical analysis, of course, and I've done a lot about something called actor network theory. Just to try to find the it's a study essentially about power and power structures that I've always been interested in. And my latest book was Temple of Solomon, and the one we're going to talk about, Rockefeller controlling the game. It was released in first edition in 2019. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that's one of those things. It's like you hear a lot of people talk about the people in control and the Rockefellers and the Carnegies and all this kind of stuff. But it's nice to actually see somebody that actually took the time to deep dive and study into these guys. And that's something, honestly, that I've not done. I've just kind of done some surface level stuff and had some conversations with people about this family and how they kind of rule from behind the scenes with all their money. So I'm really excited to talk to you today and kind of see what your studies has exposed.
Yeah.
Well, how you want to lead this off, Jacob? Just start us off on this journey, kind of let us know how you started writing the book and just kind of walk us through some of the things that you found as you were researching.
So my interest in the Rockefellers, it began, it's like 20 years from now. I was studying the peak oil theory, and I did this as a student in geography. And the Rockefellers were, of course, very important in the oil business and were behind the Standard Oil Corporation and later the descendant companies with ExxonMobil and Chevron and so on. Very, very, very important. But the thing that caught my real attentions about the Rockefellers, it wasn't the oil business that everyone knows that they have been involved with. It was during I was studying how the climate change agenda started. I wanted to have knowledge about that, and this was during my time as a PhD student. This was like 2008, 2009. And I was about to start to write a background chapter about this, because I wrote about European biofuels policy, and the climate was a big part of why the European Union wanted to support development of biofuels. So as I was doing this background studies, I began with I had one book that was published by the Royal Institute of International Affairs, and they pointed out some milestones in the climate change agenda. And that was very interesting, because it was some of the key things was a conference in 1963. I think it was in New York, actually at the Rockefeller University in New York. And this it was an organization that was behind this, and called Conservation Foundation. And Conservation Foundation were a group that was funded and founded by the Rockefellers, especially one of the Rockefeller brothers, Lawrence Rockefeller. He was known as Mr. Environment at the time. And also I had a discussion with one of my colleagues I was at the Climate Policy Center in Norrköping. It's my hometown. And I discussed with him, and I asked, do you know anything about how the Intergovernment Panel on Climate Change was founded, and the background to this, and even what happened before? And he said, I just have an article about the founding of the IPCC, and you can have a look at it. And I read it, and in that report, it was stated that a couple of the most important meetings about that led up to the founding of this climate panel was funded by Rockefeller Foundation and Rockefeller Brothers Fund. So we had this early meeting when we had this meeting in the 80s, and that caught my attention, because this is oil money. These are the people that has been behind a lot of everything that has been going on with the globalization and the oil economy, and change everything essentially in the 20th century. And the people that's behind Exxon, that is labeled as the big bad company that is spreading this disinformation about climate change. So for me it was, what? Why do the Rockefellers fund climate change research and climate change activism, and also want to anchor this in politics? First National,
counterproductive to their interests. You know
yeah,
what I mean?
that was
big
what,
bad oil company.
Yeah, that was what caught my attention, and that's what so I wanted really to dig into this. I wrote first a background chapter in this in my PhD thesis. It was published in 2012, and it got me into a lot of trouble, I can tell you. But my PhD thesis wasn't. It was about European Union energy policy. It wasn't about the Rockefeller. It was a kind of. I could have it as a background chapter, but it wasn't the main topic of my dissertation. So afterwards, I wrote another. I rewrote this background chapter and published it in another book that was released in Sweden the year after my PhD thesis, that got a lot of attention and also trouble for me because I came in contact with a lot of people that climate skeptics in Sweden. That wanted this information to get to the big newspapers and so on. So this book was sent to every editorial department in the big newspapers in Sweden, and also television, and everyone got a copy of this, and. They didn't like it. They didn't like also with the PhD thesis. And actually I had the head of the Club of Rome, that is a very, very important environmental think tank. He actually tried to intervene and prevent my PhD thesis from being approved. He didn't succeed. Yeah. So that was at that time I knew I was onto something.
That's right. They tried to shut you up.
Yes. So I got into kind of a lot of trouble because of this. And after this book, that was the popular version, I hadn't a job at the university anymore. It was like, no, we don't have funds for you anymore. We won't renew the contract. So I had to go, and at that time I decided a couple of years later that I would take this chapter and expand it. Because I wrote first about the story about how climate change became a big political thing, and found the Rockefellers involved everywhere. It was from the 50s until the late 1980s, early 1990s. But I wanted to cover the whole story. The beginning of the Rockefeller empire, why they were interested in environmental issues, and the story after the founding of IPCC, and what happened up to the signing of the Paris Agreement. That was so. I wanted to cover everything and really get into because I wanted to know and understand what was behind these ambitions, and why they had funded this. What were the goals? What did they want to achieve? I already had some in my PhD thesis, because one of the things that was they talked about all the time, it was that climate change, it's a global problem, and it's a problem that cannot be solved by any nation on its own. So all nations have to cooperate. And how can we cooperate? Okay, we might need a form of world government to do this. And they have talked about this since the 50s, and they decided in the 50s that this was the thing to climate change was very, very, very important for them. And of course, it's a lot of other things connecting to this as well. Because what I did, I started to really go into their annual reviews, annual reports. So I downloaded. It's very easy today with the internet. So we have all the annual reports from the Rockefeller Brothers Fund or Rockefeller Foundation. I decided that I wanted to have look into especially the Rockefeller philanthropies but also other organizations that they have founded and funded. And as it turned out, it was a lot. And it was kind of very, very surprising to see how involved they have been from the beginning in anchoring not just the climate agenda, but also the environmental agenda. So, the title of the book, Controlling the Game, it's about they both control both sides. They create the environmental problem with the oil, and then they come up with a solution, and they found activists that get angry on their own company, Exxon. And that's how they control things. That's the best way, because how can you lose if you control both sides and both narratives?
I agree.
Yeah.
Honestly, a lot of people would probably just speculate and say, well, they're doing that to protect their image. You know, that they're no longer the big bad oil guys. They care about the environment. But no, like you said, if they're funding both sides, then either way they win.
Yes, and so I have some colleagues said to me, that's probably just because they feel that they feel guilty because what we have done. So now they want to spend some money on environmental issues. But no, that's not what I found. It was instead a very, very they have had this agenda from the beginning, and so I studied the 50s, and it was the Rockefeller brothers, the sons to John D. Rockefeller Jr. and grandsons to John D. Rockefeller, the founder of Standard Oil. They got money from John D. Rockefeller Jr. that came from, it was from the Standard Oil companies. And this was for something called the Special Project. And this Special Project was essentially about population control. So if you go into these annual reports by the Rockefeller Brothers Fund from this time, they discuss population control. And this is also about control of resources, the resources of the world. And they also founded organizations called Resources of the Future and so on. So it's very, very connected. That we're into securing more or less supplies for big business. That's what it's about. We have to protect, we have to control the resources because that's what's important for our business. And also people. With people, we have the health agenda as well. Both climate and health has been kind of connected, interlinked together from the 50s and onwards. So it's about securing the planetary health and the human health.
You've seen Bigfoot hats, the ones that play it safe, hanging next to the fridge magnets and park gift shop. But the Soul Squatch, their gear is built different. This is Squatch-approved gear for people who believe the legend deserves more. It's rugged, meaningful, and created by two outdoor-obsessed believers who wanted to honor the myth without watering it down. Their Pathfinder hat, it's not just headwear. It's a quiet signal, something that says, yeah, I believe. Check out thesoulsquatch.com. Step into the story and join the ones who never stop believing.
And population control is also, it comes from another thing that the Rockefeller were very involved with from in the early 1900s, and that's the eugenics movement. So that was very, very eugenics. They were involved with Nazi Germany research, the Kaiser Wilhelm Institute in Berlin. And they funded this until the war broke out in 1939. And so a lot of what happening in Germany can be traced to the Rockefeller Empire. And they were also involved with the Standard Oil Corporation. They actually gave the Germans the technology to make petrol out of coal, so that Luftwaffe could go on and bomb London and Coventry and in England, and also extending the war. So they were very involved. And eugenics, of course, we know what this led to. We have a German catastrophe, but we also have sterilization programs in a lot of Western countries. And in Sweden, we had this for a long, long, long time. So eugenics in the 50s, you couldn't talk about it anymore because of what happened in Nazi Germany. So we have to relabel it and give it another name. And a lot of those people involved in these eugenics programs, they were also involved in the early environmental movement that was founded by the Rockefellers. And you can see that a lot of people involved in eugenics also are the ones that talk about climate change. So that was, for me, really, really shocking. Oh, shit. This was something else that when I first imagined. And it's way more serious.
Yeah, like you said, they got their fingers in everything, you know?
Yeah, they do.
Even the war. They were controlling both sides of the board with the war.
Yeah. And making
all the
money.
banking families that they're in cahoots with. And like in America, they talk about all those big families getting together and meeting on Jekyll Island off the coast of Georgia. And that's how they formed the whole Federal Reserve. And now you see the American government owes, trillions and trillions of dollars to these families.
Yes, it has been a very, very close cooperation between Carnegie and Ford, those foundations. And at that time, during the 40s and 50s, late 40s, I think Ford Foundation was created. And these were the three big ones: the Rockefellers, the Carnegies, and the Fords. And they were very, very involved. And we know from the Rees Commission and that they were involved in a lot of things that had happened with to try to influence United States into an internationalist direction and change the education system and so on.
Yeah, a lot of people don't realize Ford, he was a Nazi sympathizer. He was a supporter of Hitler and what he was doing over there, and actually even published some works backing Hitler and Mein Kampf. You know, that's something that I hadn't heard about till I was in my 30s, but I mean, it's out there when you search for it.
Yes, very much so. So it's a lot of, and it is things that's not have been dealt with afterwards. These people, they have just continued. And it's the same in Sweden. We have Wallenberg family that is very, very, it's like the Swedish Rockefellers. And they are involved in everything in Sweden, and they control essentially the whole stock market, or half of it, and all the big corporations in Sweden. And they were very, very involved with Germany, Nazi Germany, and selling iron ore to Germany, and but they say extended the war with maybe a couple of years. So Sweden was very, very important, and that the Wallenbergs, they did. I mean, they just continued after the war, and they're still doing it today, profiting on war. It's the same thing, and they were also friends with the Rockefellers. They are, as these families often are. They know they can't. In some cases, they try to destroy each other, but in this case, they need each other's support, and we work together because they are into international business. That's what they are, and But the Rockefellers, if we will continue with them, had this involvement during the 50s. So I went into and studied with the 50s, and then found out during the 60s they had this meeting at the Rockefeller University. And it's the same place as that we have the Population Council. And Population Council, it comes out of a eugenics agenda. So intertwined. And they had this meeting, and after in 1963, where they said, they concluded, they had 7 scientists at this meeting, but they called it an international conference about the carbon dioxide problem. It was just, and it's interesting because this story involves very much Sweden as well, because it was Swedish scientists and American scientists that made the carbon dioxide theory the driving force for climate change. It was carbon dioxide that comes from humans. That was what they came up with, and they took this message and lobbied the president, Lyndon Johnson, who took over from JFK. Because the Rockefellers were very, very close to Lyndon Johnson and the White House. They had actually, during the 50s, published a report called the Special Studies Project, led by Nelson Rockefeller, who later became a vice president in the 70s. And the coordinator of this project was Henry Kissinger. And in this project was about how United States would, the politics of the United States, international politics, how they will act, everything. And this project was done as a backbone to the presidential administrations during the 60s and 70s. And it was used by especially beginning with JFK, and then with Lyndon Johnson, and then by Nixon. And Lyndon Johnson, he took this message of climate. He was the first president that said this, and we are doing a big experiment with carbon dioxide. It could be a problem, and we have to work together to solve this. So America first, and then they set up a conference in Stockholm, Sweden, my country, an environmental conference, the first one under United Nations. And this was in 1972. And this was done for the new environmental agenda. And we find Rockefeller Foundation very, very, very involved in this. And they even sent Lawrence Rockefeller to this conference. And also leading this conference was their henchman, Maurice Strong, a lawyer that had worked with the Rockefellers and working with oil as well, as all these people have done, and then go to conference to discuss environment. And at this conference, the climate agenda was introduced at the United Nations level. So they were behind that as well, first anchoring in United States and then in United Nations. And they cooperated with, this was run by the Aspen Institute. They were supported by Rockefeller Foundation, Rockefeller Brothers Fund, and all this. So Aspen Institute, they kind of wrote the agenda for the Stockholm Conference. And then they had a cooperation with Sweden. And Sweden was the neutral outpost to do these things, because they concluded that we can't have this in United States, because the third world countries, they won't believe us if we do this. So we use Sweden. Sweden is popular in the rest of the world. It's seen as a peace-loving country, and Sweden was against the Vietnam War and so on. So it was kind of, they were viewed as this country that against American imperialism. But no, not really. Yeah, that's also this controlling the game. So Sweden just played a role to convince the other countries to join this cause, and the third world countries came into this because they were very suspicious in the beginning. They saw this conference as a tool for the West to kind of limit their growth, and their because we know also Rockefellers and Henry Kissinger, they have seen the problem with population explosion. We talked a lot about this in the 60s, and it was a big thing with this conference as well. A lot of population scare. They didn't want these countries to develop because it would make a larger population. It would be impossible for them to actually impose their kind of control. Too many people to control, and we need to preserve our power. We don't want that kind of competing power. So they were very suspicious, but with Sweden's help, they managed to get this meeting together, and also these people in these countries sign a document that led to later Agenda 21 during the 80s. And climate change would be the big issue in this Agenda 21. So, and Maurice Strong, the lawyer, the Rockefeller lawyer, he became one of the main figures in setting up this. And they had this Brundtland Commission in the 80s. Very, very important, led by the Norwegian Prime Minister, Gro Harlem Brundtland. And people in this commission were very connected to the Rockefellers, and especially the Trilateral Commission that was set up. First, we had the environmental meeting, 1972, and then we have the setup of the Trilateral Commission to support, in the beginning, neoliberal policies and all the things that happened with globalization during the 70s and 80s, and how we moved all our industries to China, for example. But we also, and that's fascinating to read about, we had this environmental meeting in 1972, and then in 1973, something very important happened. Besides the Trilateral Commission coming, began its operations, and that was the triggering event that made everyone talk about the constraints of the modern Western civilizations and the oil economy, and that was the oil crisis, of course. And that's very interesting with the oil crisis, because if you go into the origin of it, this is a manufactured crisis. And of course, we find some key people involved in this manufactured crisis. One of them was Henry Kissinger.
And adjust the prices of oil. So if you're the oil guy and you cause these catastrophes and shortages of oil, that means the price of your stuff goes way up. You're manipulating the price.
Yes, that's what they wanted to achieve. They stated that the thing was that they had wanted to develop the oil in Alaska, but it was way more expensive. So you had to have higher oil prices for this to be economically viable. So, and also the North Sea oil outside of Norway and Great Britain. After the oil crisis, they started to develop these oil fields, more expensive oil, but now it became lucrative. I mean, they could earn money on it, but the oil crisis also it set the light on these issues with, it becomes a problem where with no oil we cannot have this civilization. We have to do something. We have to change the system. We have to prepare for this. So we started to set up, like, for example, the International Energy Agency, and they set up the United Nations Environmental Program came into existence after the Stockholm Conference. But it was a lot of work starting at the supranational level, United Nations agencies talking, because now it was a real problem. Before they talked about the problem. Now everybody could see this is a problem. But actually, as I said, it was manufactured. We discussed this at the Bilderberg meeting in Stockholm. Before this happened, a couple of months before the oil crisis, they discussed the exact scenario of an oil price increase. So the insiders of Bilderberg, they knew what will happen, and they also could invest, of course, in these things, because that's what we do. This is essentially the mafia. And that's how the Rockefellers began the business. It's very much so.
With the price of eggs and bread slowly approaching a day's wages, it's more important than ever than to secure the value of your dollar. One thing that has remained steady is gold and silver throughout the ages. Back in Roman times, a piece of gold would get you a toga. That's the equivalent of $3,000 today. That still remains true to this day. For a full suit, shoes, tie, you're looking at about $3,000 because gold and silver holds its value. So if you're tired of watching the value of your dollar go down every single day, it's time to get off your hands and make a move. I've recently teamed with Cornerstone Asset and Metals. Reach out to those guys for all of your financial needs. It's time to trade in that forever devaluing dollar into hard assets that you can hold, like gold and silver. Be sure and check the link down in the description or the number on the screen. And hey, tell them Doc Brown sent you. And, they were part of those families that the United States passed those monopoly laws because these families were going around and buying up all the competition and just joining into like a big super company.
Yes, yeah. So yeah, they wanted to get rid of it, but they didn't succeed. What happened was that they took over more or less everything, and politics, and the thing with when you had in the mid-70s Henry Kissinger and Nelson Rockefeller in the White House at the same time. They had it. They controlled it. And they had Gerald Ford. That was their guy as well. Because the presidents have been bought by these people. And the people involved in the Council on Foreign Relations. Very, very important with the Council on Foreign Relations as well. Because that's what connects the Rockefeller network with the Carnegies and Fords and all these entities, the other big families in the Eastern establishment. They cooperate in the Council on Foreign Relations. And the Council on Foreign Relations is a part of a roundtable group or roundtable movement together with Royal Institute of International Affairs in London and so on. And have been working with this for a long time. And since the 1920s, early 1920s, with the setup of the League of Nations. And so I just found during the work all these connections everywhere. And especially with with the climate change agenda as well, and this has just continued with a new generation as well with Rockefellers, because we had the Rockefellers, the Rockefeller brothers, that were very important with. As I mentioned, Nelson became the vice president. Into politics, he was the governor of New York. And we have also Lawrence, as I mentioned, very, very important in environmental issues. He was the chairman of the Rockefeller Brothers Fund for like 20 years. And we have Johnny Rockefeller III. He was the chairman of the Rockefeller Foundation for, I think, also like 20 years. And David Rockefeller, I think he's the most important of the Rockefeller brothers. Involved in banking, Chase Manhattan Bank, chairman, and the founder of Trilateral Commission, and also chairman of the Council on Foreign Relations. Very, very powerful man.
A lot of influence there.
A lot of influence, and he was around from the 50s until his death in 2017. Because it's like they never get tired. I think he wanted to be. He wanted to witness some things that he had talked about in the 50s that they wanted to achieve, and this was, for example, the big climate agreement in Paris in 2015, and also the Sustainable Development Goals the same year. So that, and in 2016 also the World Economic Forum's Fourth Industrial Revolution was rolled out. So that was kind of things that he wanted and had talked about for a long time. And then it was like, now the ball is rolling. Now I can leave this to another generation. The new generation of the Rockefellers, they are not that well known. I don't know if you know any names of... No?
No. But the best place to hide is in plain sight and in the shadows, you know what I mean?
Yes. Yes, I have learned everything about the Rockefellers now, of course, writing a book about them, because I didn't know that much. I knew about John D. Rockefeller, and I knew about David Rockefeller and Nelson, maybe. But the other people involved, quite unknown, and especially, I mean, I live in Sweden. It's not like we know them by name. And we know about the oil business and so on, but very little about the family. But I also, when I was doing this study, I read a lot of biographies, because I wanted to know from them what do they think themselves, their words for it, not that some outside analytic that kind of come up with things about the Rockefellers that may or may not be true. I just wanted to hear it in their own words, and also try to watch films about them and with them talking and so on, to get a feel for these people. But the new generation, that's what I was going to talk about, or the succeeding generation, that was the most known people. It's a Senator, J. Rockefeller, and he was a senator for a long time. Was it? Now I don't remember the state, but. He was very, very involved in politics, and also involved. He had been at the board of a Rockefeller Foundation, a Trilateral Commission. So involved in politics, and with people like Al Gore and Clintons and so on know each
bring
other.
Up climate change, that's the first name, honestly, that pops in my head is Al Gore, because I guess he was the loudest and most visible person talking about it.
Yes, and then he was involved with the Trilateral Commission as well. So a lot of people comes from these Rockefeller networks. So he was one of them. And we also have another professor called Stephen Rockefeller. He was the son of Nelson Rockefeller. And Stephen was actually, he was involved in the agenda in a way that almost no other was at the time. Because in the 90s, they had came up with Agenda 21 document at the big environmental conference in Rio de Janeiro in 1992. The agenda for the 21st century, Rockefeller agenda, essentially. And so they, after that meeting, they decided that they wanted a form of an Earth Charter for, new commandments for Earth. So together with the Dutch government and the Dutch royals, they set up a commission, the Earth Charter Commission. And they, of course, had Maurice Strong in this, as he was also the Secretary General of this conference in Rio. And Mikhail Gorbachev, the former Soviet Union leader, was also in this Earth Charter Commission. So he went from being the president of the Soviet Union to this Earth Charter. And that's kind of suspicious, don't you think? But the thing is, Stephen Rockefeller, the son of Nelson, he was the coordinator of the Earth Charter Commission. So we had some meetings at Rockefeller's estate outside of New York at Pocantico Hills. So very, very involved. So first in the 50s with these ideas forming, and then deciding the agenda and anchoring it and everything. And when you come to the 90s and this Earth Charter, that's a very, very interesting story also with the Earth Charter, because, as I said, the new commandments for Earth. So we had a lot of meetings discussing this, and they were ready in the year 2000. And after that, we had this kind of meeting in the Peace Palace in The Hague in the Netherlands, setting up this. We had Queen Beatrix of the Netherlands was there, of course, but they wanted to do something special about this Earth Charter. So they had commissioned an artist to do a wooden chest, like a new ark.
That's what I was about to say. They're talking about the words commandments, and now they're building this box. It's like an ark.
The new ark. So we had this artist doing this, and they took these new commandments, the Earth Charter, and put it on papyrus, and put it in this ark. And they also, it's very interesting. You can check on the internet, Ark of Hope. It's called. Just Google Ark of Hope, and you can come to this webpage. It gives the story, and the story is also that they had unicorn horns as handles to this. Of course, we know there are no unicorns, but that's how stupid this is. And this was ready. We had a ceremony the 9th September 2001 in Vermont. Jane Goodall was there. She's a nice woman, always involved in this. And Stephen Rockefeller. They have Rockefellers have a kind of retreat in Vermont, so that's why. And then something happened 2 days later, 9/11. So very, very. It's just 2 days before. So they decide we're going to carry this ark in procession and walk from Vermont to New York and put it on display at the United Nations headquarters. And it eventually came into the United Nations headquarters, before a new environmental meeting. This time in Johannesburg, in South
Once
Africa.
again, like you said, a problem, then here's the solution and hope.
Yes. So, but they had we couldn't put it in United Nations directly. I think they were doing some renovations or something, so we couldn't put it there directly. So what they did, they took it to the offices of Rockefeller Brothers Fund. Put it there.
Yeah.
That's telling.
The ones that's funding the UN.
Yeah, and actually the office building of the Rockefeller Brothers Fund, it's called the God Box because they have all these. So it's built for organizations into a lot of ecumenic work and religious organizations. So they are in this together with the Rockefeller Brothers Fund. So kind of hubris, I would say.
Ironic.
It's ironic. Yeah. It's very much so. So it was just to find all these things. It was just wow. I couldn't
it's
make
like
this
the
up
Twilight
myself.
Zone. I mean, it's so in your face, and you never think it, but it's right there in plain sight when you look.
Yes, and so Stephen was involved in this, and also in another very, very interesting project that they started right after the signing of the Rio Declaration in '92 and the Agenda 21, and that's called the Pole Star Project. And Stephen Rockefeller, he gave seed money to this, and it was a British gentleman, Gordon Goodman, together with an American from the Tellus Institute. Now the name has just slipped away, but I might remember him soon. But anyway, they set up this project, and their mission was to create scenarios for the future on how they would achieve the new sustainable development world, an ideal society, something they label as a planetary society. So they used computer modeling to come up with what kind of future and how can we get to this future? How can we create it? So they released a report in almost the same time as the Ark of Hope. It went on for 10 years, and it was later renamed to the Great Transition Initiative. And they released a report called the Promises and Lures of Times Ahead. And in this report, they discuss how crises will act as catalysts to change the future. And this is very, if you read it, I read this first time in, what could it be, 2009, 2010, something like that. And at that time, things hadn't progressed as much. But when I reread it during the pandemic, and that's when it gets spooky, because they come up with the society will change, and we have these change agents. And one of the change agents is a big pandemic coming. So it's in this report discussing this and how it will create incentives for more global cooperation and supranational entities taking over from the nations. And the end end goal is to have this world authority taking care of everything on Earth. A very, very interesting report. And Stephen Rockefeller gave the seed money and the inspiration for this work, and it's been used by United Nations in their work. And yeah, as you mentioned, the Rockefellers have been very, very involved in United Nations since its inception in 1945. And we had Nelson Rockefeller. He was at the meeting in San Francisco in 1945, and they founded the United Nations. And the Rockefellers, they actually they said that United Nations headquarters, we have a proposal. We could have the headquarters at the Rockefeller estate outside New York.
Are you a hunter, a hiker, or just an outdoor enthusiast? Well, if you are, you know that good quality gear is hard to come by. And finding all-American made is like finding Bigfoot in the woods. Hence the name of Squatch Survival Gear. Head on over to squatchsurvivalgear.com. Use the code PLP10 for 10% off store-wide.
It would be convenient for them. So that's very, very telling about. But the other delegations didn't think it was a good choice. They said, "No, we better have it in New York." It's easy to. We have to have that access. It must be easy to just come with an airplane or train or whatever, and it's easy to access, not outside. So the Rockefellers bought a portion of land where they built the headquarters. So John D. Rockefeller Jr. gave the money, and Nelson, he secured everything with the properties, and they also were involved in the architectural group that were building, responsible for the building of the headquarters. And their own architect was in this group of architects. So very, very, very involved. But and that was I would say the time when the Rockefellers were the most visible and also most powerful. Because if you go into today, where the Rockefellers are still involved, the people, the Rockefellers in charge now, they are not very well known. And so we had Stephen, he was involved in this. And today the family patriarch is David Rockefeller Jr. I don't think like anyone knows who he is really, because he's not in the spotlight. He was the chairman of the Rockefeller Foundation for a couple of years, but not that in politics like his uncle was, or the banking business like his father was.
I think they learned through experience that once you're in the limelight, all eyes are on you, and it's harder to make moves that's unnoticed. Yeah. And therefore, if you kind of step back and get away from all the limelight and cameras, you can kind of move a little bit more freely.
Yeah, but I also think it's a succession problem and it also happens in these families, because we have these people that are like John D. Rockefeller. I mean, he built an empire, and then you have a successor. He might not be as good at this as the one that had the skills, but because sometimes they inherit the skills and sometimes not. And then they have to have other people coming in and doing the work. And I think that's what's happened now. They have recruited very potent people that can make good decisions for them, and they have stepped back, and they are heading some of the philanthropists like Rockefeller Brothers Fund and so on. They have their familiar representative in Rockefeller Foundation, and but essentially they have these other recruited people that works for them, professionals. But they, of course, they work for the cause. They work for the Rockefeller money. They can't work for their own. So they are owned in a way. But they also work for, because that's one of the things also. It's not just the Rockefellers. This is a movement of, as I said, the Roundtable Group and the ambitions of this wider network of industrialists and owners of corporations and banking and so on. This is a group that comes together, and the Rockefellers were just one part of it, but very powerful after the Second World War as the leading philanthropic family in the world at that time. So, but now we also have the tech giants, of course, and they came after the millennium shift in 2000, big time. But they also are connected to these networks, and
it's kind of like I hate to compare it to this, but it's the first thing that popped in my head. But it's like the cool kids in high school. There's a group of cool kids that have all the popularity and control, and they circle the wagon. They protect their interests. They look out for each other, and they make sure that they're took care of. But then if you get a new kid that comes in and they're just as popular, well, instead of fighting that new kid, they just bring them into the fold and make them a part of it. So it's like these tech giants, when they come in at all this money, it's kind of like they open the fold up. Be like, okay, come join our club. Here's the rules. Here's what we do. Here's how we take care of each other. And like you said, the whole population control, it's there's a psychologist, I can't remember his name, but he talked about the lifeboat theory. And he said, if you get a group of people and put them in a boat, he said, there's only limited resources. He said 98.5% of the time, he said a hierarchy takes place. He said, because there's the majority of the people see that there's a lack of resources. So they fight for those resources, and they set up a hierarchy, and everybody falls in line. And the first one gets fed, and the one that takes care of the leader gets fed. And the weak ones that don't contribute and are taking up resources, they're kicked off the boat till eventually there's only 2 or 3 left on the boat, and they all take care of each other. That's kind of how I see that. Is they want to, they see a very limited amount of resources, so therefore they want to down the population so that way they don't run out of resources. And at the same time, supporting the big oil and the philanthropy, that way they got the image of looking good, but they're really controlling both sides of the board, as you said.
Yeah, they are. And these tech people, of course, they are groomed. These are people that are they are chosen. They are by these people, and they need money. They start startups, so they get funded. And the Rockefellers, they had this investment arm called Wenrock. And it was started as the Rockefeller Brothers Incorporated in the 40s, and in the late 60s it became Wenrock, and Wenrock has been very important in development of these new tech companies, Silicon Valley, like for example Intel and Apple. So they pick up these people, and they give them positions. They invite them to their networks, and they join the club. And if you go into what the Rockefeller capital management is investing their money is, it's in these tech companies. Their top positions isn't any longer the oil companies. They have the Exxon and Chevron and so on. These are still part of their holdings. But a lot of investment now has gone into like Apple and Microsoft and all these other tech giants and pharmaceuticals.
And why wouldn't you? Because these are the ultimate spy devices. Your cell phones, your computers, your cars now are smart cars, and they're constantly listening to you and data. What do they call it? Data harvesting. Getting what you talk about. That way they can know how to market to you better. They trace your driving patterns. Then they're like, oh yeah, this guy goes to work down this street every Monday through Friday at this time. So if we want to target him, we need to set some stuff up here, do that. And it's just one of those things. I mean, it is the future, and it even ties into our last conversation, Jacob, the whole Temple of Solomon and transhumanism movement.
Yes, of course, and the Rockefellers have been involved in this, of course, and the philosophies of transhumanism, and they actually, there's one name, Pierre de Chardin, who was a Jesuit priest, that has been called the Christian transhumanist. And the Rockefellers loved his theories about human evolution, and the combination of evolution theory and Christianity. A very, very bizarre mix, but it supported their goals for the world. We have we both, Chardin, he said, we're going to, everything is heading to the omega point, and we're going to have a world government, and we're going to have a superhuman. That's a part of it, and also said technology is a big part of it. Human development of technology is a part of God's divine plan for us. And that was a perfect mix, because one thing the Rockefellers, if you go back into what John D. Rockefeller Sr., he was a devoted Christian, because I would say it's a strange mix. He had a mother that was very, very into religion, and a father called Devil Bill, that was into business and doing these charlatan tricks, and essentially fooling everyone with. He was kind of hunted from state to state because his business practices. But he taught John D. Rockefeller a lot about how to do business and how to earn money. And when he had his mother's side, this strict religious, and he mixed this. But it's a kind of wait a minute. It's a kind of his view about Christianity, John D. Rockefeller. It was, God loves me. I have all this money, and the poor people, they are losers. They are not the chosen people of God. I am. I get the money, and that's because God loves me. And with this money, I can change the world and create a better world. And it's like there's like an idea in this about recreating Eden with the use of technology. and then make us come closer to God. But it's an artificial God, the AI God in the end. But it's a twisted thinking, but you can see it from the beginning, and it's like they are on a mission to do this.
Yeah, 100%. And it kind of goes back to what we were talking about the last conversation. Whole the dragon seed. The dragon legacy. There's this group of people that trace their lineage back to Cain and thinks that Cain was basically screwed out of his birthright and dominion of earth. And so they are the ones with the divine right to rule. And like you said, he has this God complex, like, oh, I'm so blessed. And it's because I'm a chosen one. And I have to rule over these peons that don't know any better and lead them to perfection. And that's scary.
Yeah, it's scary. And we can see it in a lot of these people that have success, and they have hubris, and it's like Jeffrey Epstein, these kind of people that goes into these transhumanistic fantasies and experimenting 100%. With people.
Yeah, they think they're above the law, and if you have that complex, you think you're the top dog and you're above the law and above the rules and you're chosen. It's hard to have any kind of self-conscious debate of morality.
Yeah.
Well, Jacob, man, I thank you so much for coming and hanging out with us. I've had you for an hour and 15 minutes. I want to thank you for your time and not take any more from you and be greedy. But, man, just thank you so much. And for those maybe that tuned in maybe late to the episode, go ahead and let everybody know where they can find your website and your books and content if they're interested in learning more.
Yes. So this is what I've been talking about is from this book. This is a Swedish edition I'm holding here. And the first American edition, it looked like this as well. But now there's another edition out on Skyhorse for American market, and you can find buy that on you can order it from Skyhorse, of course, and you can find it on the enemy sites like Amazon, Easy Access, and also have another book out on Skyhorse called The Global Coup d'etat. A book we could discuss some other time, but you can also find my latest book at my from my webpage, my web store at jacobnordangård.se. My books can be found there, and the links to my other work and YouTube and also my Substack, because on my Substack my latest I post all my latest articles about everything that's happening now, and it's a lot, of course. Yeah.
100%, guys. But yeah, like he said, you get this from the Big Brother sites, but if you can go straight to the source and get them from these guys, that's what you want to do. I got my copy of the Temple of Solomon directly from Jacob on his website. And not only do you put all of the money into the creator's pocket, you are giving the middle finger to the Big Brother establishment, but you also get a signed copy from the author. So make sure to go to his website and order directly from him if you guys are going to order your books. Yeah, well, Jacob, once again, brother, thank you so much, and I'd love to have you back to talk about your other book whenever you have the time available to do that. But guys, be sure to check Jacob's stuff out. This is the second time we've had him on the show, and as you can see, he's a well-researched man, very intelligent man, well-articulated man, and he writes just the same. So be sure and check out his stuff, guys. Until next time, torches high, guys.